Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hello, everyone. Good Monday morning. My name is Nick Reed, and the much-anticipated announcement of RFK Jr. throwing his support behind Donald Trump. He made the announcement about withdrawing from the battleground states and then made an appearance with Trump. He has been out there talking about the reasons. We'll play some of that audio. His announcement was opened with explaining pretty much what he's been going through and how he has watched his party, that was once upon a time his party in the name of democracy, dismantling it. And he would, after that opening, talk a bit about some of the issues in particular, health a big one, in which he has a great deal of focus on. And so he talked on that, and we'll have some of the audio, but I'm watching, and maybe some of you did as well, the announcement that Trump at a rally in which he brings out RFK Jr. And it just seemed bigger than the final night of the Democratic National Convention. I mean, even the crowd size, it may not have been, but I mean, it was just, and it's so amazing. Here you have the Democrats at the Democratic National Convention, and there has to be this made-up story that Beyonce is going to perform there in order to pack the place. And we all know that's exactly why that was done. They put out there these rumors that, it might be Taylor Swift, it might be Beyonce, might be Taylor, might be Beyonce. Oh, saw a caravan of caravan of SUVs driving through Chicago. Oh, that must be Beyonce. There were people talking about flight trackers, and I mean, it was said and done. And as it would turn out, there was never even any contact with it. There was never going to be a Beyonce performance. It was done to pack the place. You've got that fake excitement, that lack of authenticity, and then I watched Trump bring out RFK Jr. And I mean, it for all the talk in the media about how electrified the final night was, that just electricity, the excitement, I'm telling you, it just was not on par with the excitement and electricity of a Trump rally. A lot of reaction from the media, some recognition that in some of these swing states, this could be the difference. And at the same time, the Biden administration has stripped RFK Jr. of his Secret Service protection. Like, well, he's not a candidate anymore. The majority of people that are covered by Secret Service are not candidates or the president. It's a case-by-case situation. There are obviously family members, their wives, their past presidents, sometimes dignitaries come here to the United States. You know, when Zelensky's here and his wife is here, they get Secret Service protection. So Secret Service protection is afforded by Homeland Security under the Biden administration to those who might potentially, their existence in the world of politics could invite some assassin. RFK Jr., I think most would argue that is the case. They stripped him of that Secret Service protection. We'll play some of the reaction audio. Also, I'm telling you, Republicans have definitely hit their stride. Between J.D. Vance this weekend on with Kristen Welker, Meet the Press, Tom Cotton on with Jonathan Carl. I mean, they just are absolutely 100% on point. And what Kamala Harris and her campaign is beginning to deal with, to their detriment, is a media that must have something to talk about when it comes to her campaign. You and I, we've watched 24-hour media, and there's some big issue that's going on, right? And maybe it's breaking news. They don't want to cut away from it, but at the same time, there's no new information. At some point, it becomes redundant. And what do? They get any and every expert to come on, and it's speculation. Well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it's because they know we have to continue to cover this, but they need new information. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same thing over and over again. And this is what I believe is slowly occurring with the Kamala Harris campaign, and it's going to be detrimental because, all right, so the media, Kamala, she's amazing. Everyone's so excited. Oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever, historic. But you can't do that and simply that every day over and over and over again without giving reasons and examples why. So in other words, if you don't have the candidate coming out and giving an interview, then you don't have 2 or 3 days to talk about the interview. And then off of that interview, the ability to talk about reaction to the interview and analysis of the interview. If you don't have a candidate that is out there giving press conferences and answering questions, then you don't have Kamala is talking about this. There is no Kamala talking about anything. And the few events that she does show up to speak at, it's the same thing over and over again. And there isn't any substance to it. So at some point, the media, they're just going to be grasping, and I think we're seeing this to some degree already, for something to talk about, because when it comes to Kamala, there isn't anything any longer. Obviously, just the initial days of her announcement or her anointment occurring, that in and of itself was talked about, and the poll numbers to be talked about, and will there be debates to talk about, and then comes the Democratic National Convention. So events that will involve Kamala or did involve Kamala were things that were new to talk about. Well, there's a debate in a couple of weeks, but other than that, what do you talk about if you are wanting to do a segment on Kamala Harris? And I think increasingly this is going to be a struggle, and really it leaves the media with the conversation about we don't have anything to talk about because she won't talk to us. And there are some in the media who are beginning to note this. Gal from CNN with Bill Maher on Friday, noting that, listen, if you want to be carrying the nuclear codes, you ought to probably at least do an interview with the press. A look at the weather coming up. The Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today, it's going to be a hot one. Sunny with a high near 94. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 72. On Tuesday, once again, hot with a high near 95. And on Wednesday, hot, sunny, high near 94.
I want to thank the Vitae Foundation for another incredible event, allowing me to MC. You were there.
Yes. I love volunteering for the Vitae Foundation.
Uh, so I do not know what it is about you that other people see that I don't. I'm just kidding.
You're rude.
But no, so listen to, so I'm sitting there. I'm generally at a table up front because I MC. That way I'm very close to the podium, and in the times when I'm not up there MCing, I'm able to, sit down in close proximity and then get back up. And one of the other individuals that works for Vitae Foundation, but used to be in media in the area, Cass, and she made a comment to me. She said, I don't think I've ever told you this, but how just important and instrumental Sarah was when I was far along in my pregnancy and I was at my wit's end and didn't know if I was going to be able to do it because of work and just how it was going to be done. And she was telling me that you were so encouraging to her that she really attributes your words to her ability to make it through. And so, this is the first time telling you of this because I haven't seen you since then. So she was just talking about how grateful she was and wanted me to know that. Then as I'm leaving, there is another gal whom you had just met who's in the media in the area, and she stops me to tell me how absolutely wonderful she thinks you are,
Aw.
and you're there. And I'm like, what is the deal with all? Stop it already.
Maybe I'm just
like,
nice, okay?
well, what do you keep it hidden away for? I mean, it's like what you reveal it just at
When
these little moments.
We're kind of like a married couple.
Mm.
Like, you're like my work husband, so you get to see me at
Okay.
5 a.m. in the morning. I roll out of bed, hair stuck to the side of my head. I don't want to talk to you. So
But
maybe that's what it
It
is.
was just so I go to this event and I go, I get to MC it and everything, and all anybody wants to do is talk about how incredible you are.
It's really nice.
It was great. But let me tell you also, big weekend for me. So as I mentioned, Friday, got to MC with this incredible organization, and then Barry Manilow on Saturday.
I forgot all about that.
It was
Did you get to meet him?
awesome. No, I didn't get to meet him.
Boo.
But I was fine with that. We, my wife and I, and then a couple that we're really, really good friends with, some of our best friends, we went and had dinner at Gilardi's ahead of time, and walked down there. So a number of our listeners were around us, and that was kind of nice. Some one couple I knew in particular, some others I got to meet for the first time. But I'm telling you, the concert, it was an hour and a half. It opened up with this singing comedian. They kind of try to get the audience, the crowd, I guess, ready or whatever. But he hit the stage at 8, and it was around 9:40 when he walked off stage, and it was just absolutely fantastic. I'm telling you, his voice is just as strong, and even talking. I've seen sometimes people that get older and they talk and it sounds like their voice is a little shaky, and then they're booming out the song, and you're like, I think there's got to be some backup vocal here that's given some assistance. But even just when he was talking, he's 81 years old.
Yeah.
I just strong, but it was, of course, I've been a Barry Manilow fan for a very long time. It's just a fantastic concert.
It's great. I'm gonna miss the commercials. Say goodbye to the legend, Barry Manilow. Did you tell him goodbye?
I did.
When he walked off stage.
Yep. It's like, bye. He first performed in Springfield in 1983. And then the second time he performed, I believe he said 1994. I believe those were the time. And so he's been here 3 times performing. And, he's still going to perform. It's just he's got a residency in Las Vegas. And I think he mentioned somewhere else that he performs. But in terms of touring, this is it. And, of course, we had him on the show, and he talked about he is working on an album. But it was a really, really neat concert. So I was very pleased with it.
This is a banner weekend.
It was a banner weekend. And then I smoked ribs yesterday. Boom. Big weekend. Big weekend for the Trump campaign. Everything is talking, or everyone, it's not about the DNC. The timing of this, any sort of momentum, though I don't think that there was a lot because it was artificial, for Kamala Harris coming out of the convention, had all of the wind taken out of the sails because of the announcement by RFK Jr., something that was anticipated, it was expected. And many of the reasons that he gave were reasons that I thought would make sense for him to support Trump. And that's essentially, you have two choices here. You've got the party that is establishment, that is deep state, if you will, rigging elections, kicking political opposition off ballots, trying to put political opposition in prison, controlling the media, or whether it's picking up the phone call, as the administration has acknowledged that I think it's every Tuesday they have calls, or they did anyway, with the media telling them how to cover stuff, and they would dutifully get on those calls and oftentimes take that direction. And then you have the party that isn't that. You have the party that is of the people. And I would say just the way the process is played out, you have two political parties, one in which, despite the elites telling the voters, do not choose this guy, the voters over and over again said, no, we're in charge. Then you have the Democrat Party, in which the party tells them, choose this guy. So they choose that guy, Biden. And then the elites and the donors are like, we don't want him anymore. Here's your new person you're going to have. It is the complete opposite way. And that's much of what RFK Jr. talked about, what the Democratic Party was once upon a time, and what it's not today, and what it is today. He made what I thought was a fantastic, absolutely 100% on point comparison between Putin and Biden. And I'll play that audio coming up. I want to also note, and I realized over the weekend I made reference to this, but I did not elaborate on it, the difference in leadership style regarding the reports that RFK Jr. had been reaching out to both campaigns. And the Kamala Harris campaign just wouldn't even bother to return the phone calls, while the Trump campaign did. Many people would have tried to claim, well, this is why he's endorsing Trump. As I laid out before, I think, and RFK Jr. lays out the reasons that he endorsed Trump, and it wasn't because Trump took the phone calls. But this is a difference in leadership style. This is why Trump is able to get things done with people that are in opposition versus somebody like Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris or the Biden administration, if they don't have use for you, if they see you as a political disadvantage perhaps, they won't even bother to have any sort of conversation with you. Whereas Trump sees it as an opportunity to perhaps get something done. It's pretty hilarious when you think about it, because the Democrats are always portraying themselves as the party that will reach across the aisle and will work with, bringing everyone together, the party of unity, where we're willing to work with the opposition because we don't just represent Democrats, we represent all Americans. Yet they're the ones that have no use for you, will not even answer your phone calls if they don't believe that you can benefit them politically. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is portrayed as this tyrant who won't listen to anyone. It's his way or the highway. You're fired. And he refuses to listen to reason. He refuses, as an extremist, to talk with others that have opposing points of view. Yet he's the one who is more than willing to. This is why he was able to get, in terms of, I'm talking just leadership abilities. This is why he was able to get North Korea to stop its nuclear ambitions, to stop testing nuclear weapons, to stop launching intercontinental ballistic missiles. This is how leaders get things done. They recognize that sometimes there might be the ability to get some positive things done by picking up the phone and having a conversation with someone you don't like. And if there were any real, genuine inner reflection, soul searching by the Democrats, they would recognize that as their party portrays themselves as representing everyone and always willing to listen. Oh, because we can learn so much from those with whom we disagree that, in fact, they have no use and won't even pick up the phone. The only time they pick up the phone for somebody that is political opposition is if they're political opposition in name only. So somebody like a Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger, who are looking to actually ally with and abandon their own political party, not represent their political party, but to abandon it, those individuals they welcome on board. But if you aren't somebody that is going to bend a knee and be completely obedient, then they have no use for you whatsoever. One of Obama's big campaign themes when he was first running for president was that the way that you deal with our adversaries is not with a closed fist, but with an open hand. That was supposed to be a swipe at Republicans and George Bush, who, in the context of war on terror, said you're either with us or against us. And the Democrats love to portray themselves as willing to meet with, willing to, with an open hand, shake hands with political opposition, with our geopolitical opposition across the world, in order to see where it is that we can mend our differences or perhaps at least find our commonalities and utilize that in order to move forward. But when Trump does it, well, look, he's cozying up to dictators. See the hypocrisy? Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Before we get a traffic update, you're probably going to notice, gosh, I don't know how soon this is going to be happening, but there are going to be billboards popping up around the Springfield area for Kansas Territory Brewing Company, and this is a craft small town brewer out of Washington, Kansas. They've got sort of an interesting history. You can check them out at KansasTerritoryBrewingCo.com. Right now, you can get their beer exclusively at Hammons Field. I know they are going to be launching in some other areas, perhaps restaurants. They're going to get on shelves so that you can buy cans yourself. I've had a couple of their beers. They're limited in scope. They focus on the quality as opposed to quantity. Bradford Light and the Pineapple Life Coach, which I don't like overly sweet beers, but it wasn't for me anyhow. So they're gonna, as I said, as they make their way into the market here and spread out, they're on a number of different fronts. Going to be trying to make you aware of them. So maybe if you're at a game at Hammons Field, you can seek out the Kansas Territory Brew, and you'll start seeing billboards up and around. So I want to welcome them. They wanted to hit the Springfield market in a meaningful way, and one of those ways with Springfield Talk. And so that's why they are on board with us, and you'll be hearing us talk about them at least through the end of the year and perhaps beyond that. Kansas Territory Brewing Company, and their website again, kansasterritorybrewco.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today it's going to be sunny and hot with a high near 94. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 95. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 94.
RFK Jr. making what was expected to be his announcement to throw his support behind Donald Trump, and he spoke, I think, around 45 minutes or so on Friday with this announcement. And the opening of it was just explaining what it is that he as a candidate has been going through and how he has observed, as so many others have, that the Democrat Party is a party that is corrupt and anti-democratic in its actions. Before he talked about some issues like health issues, which are very important to him. Here's some of what he had to say regarding the Democrat Party.
In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it, lacking confidence in its candidate, that its candidate could win in a fair election at the voting booth. The DNC waged continual legal warfare against both President Trump and myself. Each time that our volunteers turned in those towering boxes of signatures needed to get on the ballot, the DNC dragged us into court, state after state, attempting to erase their work and to subvert the will of the voters who had signed those petitions. It deployed DNC-aligned judges to throw me and other candidates off the ballot and to throw President Trump in jail. It ran a sham primary that was rigged to prevent any serious challenge to President Biden. Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election. They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate.
Is there anything about what he said that's challengeable? Everything he said is true. I'm not sure how anyone, even pro-Kamala Democrats, can disagree with what he has said. Now, I imagine what occurs with Democrats is that they don't deny it, they justify it. They do not deny. Now, they may say the party is not a dictatorship, communist-style party, but they will defend the party acting as if it is. And everything RFK Jr. said there is accurate. From a political standpoint, just as an observer, I think the average American doesn't grasp how angering and frustrating and disheartening that would be for somebody like RFK Jr. And Cornel West is dealing with the same thing. Pennsylvania, they kicked him off the ballot there. Michigan, where Democrats are trying to have him thrown off the ballot, they have said on Friday, a judge has said, no, he is able to be on the ballots here. Jill Stein is dealing with this in Wisconsin. So you have these people that are constantly, instead of the ability to go out and campaign, their time and resources are taken up trying to fight against a Democrat Party that is doing everything they can to prevent them from even running. And even when they do find a judge that will rule in their favor, they have still lost to a large degree because of all the resources. Instead of those dollars going to purchase flyers, to purchase radio ads, to purchase television ads, to purchase billboards, they have to pay attorneys in order to fight back against the corruption of the Democrat Party. This is how Putin behaves. This is how Maduro in Venezuela behaves. This is how dictators behave. But can you imagine the frustration of someone and people that are supporters going out there, spending the time getting the signatures, raising money, and then at every turn you have this elite class of individuals that do everything they can to prevent you from simply participating in the electoral process. The Democrat Party is the same party that talks about how Donald Trump is a danger to democracy. Democracy is at stake, that Republicans try and disenfranchise voters. Meanwhile, look at what they're doing. The reason that RFK Jr. is running as an independent, or was running as an independent, was because, here as a Democrat within his own party, he saw the system being rigged against him, doing everything they could to prevent him from being on the Democrat ballot. So he took the only recourse that he felt gave him a fighting chance, and that is, okay, I'll run as an independent. And then they continue the assault on his right to run in a meaningful way as an independent. And all you Democrat voters out there who sit silently, who continue to support not the voices who speak out against this, but instead support the party that's doing it, this is you and this is on you. All of your talk about democracy, it's BS. I think probably one of the most on-point evaluations that RFK Jr. gave on Friday when talking about his decision to abandon his bid and instead throw his support behind Donald Trump for the presidency was the following.
How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agencies. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters. What most alarms me isn't how the Democratic Party conducts its internal affairs or runs its candidates. What alarms me is the resort to censorship and media control and the weaponization of the federal agencies. When a U.S. president colludes with or outright coerces media companies to censor political speech, it's an attack on our most sacred right of free expression. And that's the very right upon which all of our other constitutional rights rest. President Biden mocked Vladimir Putin's 88% landslide in the Russian elections, observing that Putin and his party controlled the Russian press and that Putin prevented serious opponents from appearing on the ballot. But here in America, the DNC also prevented opponents from appearing on the ballot. And our television networks expose themselves as Democratic Party organs.
It is as spot on as you can get. As spot on as you can get. All of the finger pointing and the warnings about Putin. Yet the Democrat Party operates when it comes to elections the exact same way Putin does. The exact same way. Trying to throw opposition off ballots, trying to imprison political opposition, having a media that is campaigning for you. This is all Russia. I mean, isn't it ironic that the political party that whipped up into a frenzy a false fear about Putin with the disinformation campaign that Donald Trump was colluding with him? Donald Trump's just like Putin, when they are the ones who are operating the Biden now Harris campaign in the exact same manner that Putin and the media operate his campaigns. Same way. Is there any challenge to this? Again, if confronted, they won't deny it. They'll justify it. Well, but Trump's different. See, he's a criminal. Oh, and that's different than what Putin says about the people he goes after? That's different than what Putin says when it comes to the people he's trying to throw off the ballot? Maduro did the same thing with his recent elections in Venezuela. When the Biden administration came along and said, hey, we'll lift sanctions on you as long as you allow political opposition to pick their candidate to run against you, he took a page from the Biden playbook. It's the Democrat playbook. He said, all right, that's fine. Well, then he had some judges declare that that chosen candidate wasn't allowed to actually run. You don't see Republicans doing this. You don't see the Green Party doing this. You don't see the Libertarian Party. You don't see any other party doing this other than the Democrat Party. You would think that there would be enough Democrats, elected even, that were opposed to this sort of tyranny that they could just start a new party. Like, hey, we still hold the Democrat values. We still believe in the same things we still believe in, but we also believe in elections. And so we're splintering off. But there's just no elected officials in the Democrat Party that care enough about free elections to stand up and say this is not who we are any longer. We've seen a few, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., but look how they get treated. Coming up, audio of Trump introducing RFK Jr. Friday night at a rally that, in my assessment, just visually and the authenticity of the excitement outdid the even final night of the Democratic National Convention. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Massive rally. Trump is able, just at a run-of-the-mill rally, garner the size of a crowd that the DNC has to pay people to attend. And we know that they were offering TikTok stars and even celebrities upwards of $20,000 a piece just to show up. They had to pretend, spread the false rumor that Beyonce was going to be there to perform in order to get a full house on the final evening. Trump just shows up. RFK Jr. making an appearance at the Arizona rally Friday evening.
Tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome a man who has been an incredible champion for so many of these values that we all share, and we've shared them for a long time. I don't think too many of you people have heard of him. He's very low-key. He's a very low-key person, but he's highly respected. He is a great person. I've known him for so long. For the past 16 months, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He deserves it. He deserves it. For the past 16 months, Bobby has run an extraordinary campaign for President of the United States. I know, because he also went after me a couple of times. I didn't like it. And I mean this sincerely. Had he been allowed to enter the Democrat primary, he would have easily beaten Joe Biden, but they wouldn't let him in. They put up rules. I've never seen rules like you had to have 65% of the vote in order to run, little things like that. His candidacy has inspired millions and millions of Americans, raised critical issues that have been too long ignored in this country, and brought together people from across the political spectrum in a positive campaign grounded in the American values of his father, Robert Kennedy, a great man, and his uncle, President John F. Kennedy.
He talks a little further about some of the challenges that Kennedy had. Now, the visuals of it, I'm telling you, and you can hear it, you can get a sense of crowd size. It was a sea of people. And, of course, then the music, and they had on stage those, I don't know, it's pyrotechnics. They had pyrotechnics going off. I mean, it was a better introduction, received with more authentic excitement than anything at the Democratic National Convention. You think Adam Kinzinger got that sort of, didn't he speak at the DNC?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. You think he got that sort of?
I know this is not the point that you're making, but they played the Foo Fighters song, My Hero. You probably saw this. So the Foo Fighters, they had said that they didn't have permission to play this song. Well, another, I think it was The Independent, another media outlet actually, reached out to the Trump campaign to see, like, hey, did you guys have permission to play that? And they did.
Yeah, they paid the ASCAP BMI fees.
Yep. And so the Foo Fighters are throwing an absolute fit about it. So they've now announced that they are going to, I think it's their royalties off of it. Any type of royalties that were made off of that are going to the Harris Walz campaign.
All right. Go ahead. I mean, that's their right to do so.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
But,
Dave Grohl, come on.
Yeah. Well, and artists once upon a time, like, our music's for everyone.
Yep.
Yeah. Springfield's Talk 104.1 more. Coming up, Pyramid Roofing Company Talk at text line 447 KSGF. I think I don't know. I haven't really gotten a taste of this, but I'm wondering if, this could be speculation for no reason, if there are some conservatives that are uneasy seeing such a warm welcome of RFK Jr. Because, like, he's not conservative. I don't think anyone says that. Of course, some people say Trump really ultimately isn't conservative either. He's more of a populist. But that aside, you know, my perspective on it is that you are going to succeed if when you do have some the embracement of RFK Jr. isn't because of his policies. It's because despite policy differences in a number of areas, he is willing to join with people in which he disagrees on a lot of issues in the name of freedom, in the name against tyranny. And that is the Democrat Party today, and that should be the overriding reason for that support. We've got news in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. I forget what time it was, but Saturday night into early Sunday morning, I'm watching the live coverage of these attacks in Israel and the preemptive attack they're launching. This is breaking news. And I was up later than usual because we went to the Barry Manilow concert. And then I got home and I was like, I'm going to play PS5 because the girl child was gone. And the wife was tired and going to bed. And I don't know. I thought I tried to, because during the week I go to bed early. And so sometimes on the weekends I'll just take advantage of it. And I'm up and it's, I think 1 or 2 in the morning I'm watching this stuff. And then there is across the bottom, White House says Biden is monitoring things closely. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
come on, please. Yes, I'm sure that Biden is up Eastern time at 2, 3 in the morning, and he's really on top of all this. Like, come on.
I'm pretty sure he's supposedly on vacation right now.
Oh, yeah, he was staying free at some billionaire's place out in California.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, which, of course, Democrats are claiming that they need to totally take control of any sort of ethics and rules put into place for the Supreme Court because they say Clarence Thomas does the exact same thing. Of course, as usual, rules are different depending on what political party you are. But I saw this morning a report that he's leaving that vacation and going to another one.
Are you kidding me?
It was a picture. It was on the monitor. We have a number of monitors here in the studio, and I forget which network it was. Oh, with Harris, White House posts photo of Biden working with Harris as he's on vacation.
I see that
no.
photo?
So they posted a picture of him with Harris. They're supposedly working while he's on vacation.
I know they posted it on their Facebook. I know this because I
Well,
reacted at it.
I mean, honestly, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
Post a photo of him in the White House working, claiming that that's what's going on when he's on vacation in California. Everyone knows they lie about him anyway. So it's almost as if, why are you even bothering at this point? We all know you're lying, so why do it? Why? It must be instinct. So the report said that Biden is leaving for another vacation from this, but the photo they showed was that photo of him shirtless, asleep on the lounging chair on the beach. And the idea, though, it's just so insulting. And it back to, we're talking about RFK Jr. and some of the reasons he laid out for supporting Trump was the dictatorial way that the Democrat Party has been dealing with this election, and he compared it to Putin and noted that Biden mocked Putin for winning an election and noting that, well, yeah, that's easy to do when you have the press on your side and you try to kick political opposition off of the ballot. And he noted that's exactly what it's the exact same thing. And so it is consistent to have these ridiculous assertions made by the White House that the media then carries, and Fox News does it as well, one of the reasons we don't carry them anymore. But that, they just print it on there, the White House, oh, yep, they say Biden, he's up and he's really monitoring this thing. It's like, come on. I'm sure, like watching media in Venezuela, Russia, North Korea, and this is what the left has brought us to America. But I laughed when I saw that. I was like, come on. Do they know the media when they print that stuff, they put it up there? They think we're acting as lapdogs for this administration. We are knowingly misleading people. Or I wonder if their rationalization is people don't believe it anyway, so we're not really misleading people. That's the way to make themselves feel better, to convince themselves that they're not immoral or unethical when they print information that clearly isn't true. That, well, everyone knows it's not true anyway, so it's not like we're lying to people or misleading. I mean, we may be putting, but we all know. We all know it's not true. Some of the media reaction, we've got some pollster analysis of what it could mean from a political standpoint, RFK Jr. throwing his support behind Trump. Now, in terms of the characterization of it, you have dismissal of it. They're all conspiracy, theorists. RFK Jr., Trump. They're dismissing it as being irrelevant. But when it comes to is it irrelevant in the electoral process, maybe not so much. Some of that coming up. Also, weather, but right now, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it's going to be sunny and hot with a high near 94. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 95. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 94.
We got Heroes Breakfast Friday.
That's right.
And a new partner, Warrior's Journey. We've spoken with them a couple of times on air. They are such a fantastic organization. And you've heard me talk about this when it comes to Vitae Foundation. I love measurable meaningfulness where here's our goal, this is what we're doing, this is the success, not just how many people we came in contact with or how many people we touched, but how many of those contacts resulted in success. And it's something that they monitor, particularly when it comes to the insanely high suicide rate of veterans and currently serving members of our military. And so they are on board with us now, and not only with the Heroes Breakfast, along with Delta Roofing and Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and Scramblers, of course. But we're really hoping to, well, the plan is we are going to start really working with them in a meaningful way that can hopefully help expand and get the word out for the already incredible work that they've been doing. So they're great people, too, and they just really have it on the ball out right here out of Springfield, and they have an international reach. So it's a great partnership, and we're so honored to be able to work with them on that, and grateful to have them on as our new sponsor for our Heroes Breakfast, which will be at Scramblers this Friday. Means you veterans, you know how it works. Free breakfast. You come out this Friday between 6 and 9 at Scramblers. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Should you want to watch the show as well as listen to it, you can do so YouTube. The video feed sponsored by Springfield Wraps, who also designed the KSGF studio. You know, I see these stories about RFK Jr.'s family, like disowning him, disavowing him, because he has come out in support of Trump. And then you see that his approach is, hey, we should be able to disagree and still care about each other as a family. And it's interesting that he's the one who's dealing with family, who is supporting a political party that has taken every step they possibly can to prevent him from being part of this process. Shouldn't they be disavowing the Democrat Party? Even if it weren't one of their own family members, but for violating the tenets of free and fair elections? If anyone should be doing any disavowing, you would, Kennedy, arguably, RFK, is in standing to disavow his family because they're allying with a political party that has tried to prevent him from participating in the democratic process. Yet, and that's the reason why he is getting behind Trump. He is getting behind Trump largely for the reasons that the Democrat Party is behaving the way that they falsely claim Trump behaves. His family should be defending him against the DNC, not defending the Democrat Party and the media against RFK Jr. But this isn't an uncommon characteristic of people on the left that will treat their own family like trash if they are not obedient. They will completely cut off all time. If they have to choose between their own flesh and blood and their obedience to a political party, that being the Democrat Party, they cut their family off so fast. It's another parallel, by the way, to people who join cults. If the family in any way, shape, or form is not fully in support of the cult, then they are encouraged, and they cut out their family. Because their family is a force against good. I think also there should be an evaluation of what we mean when we talk about unity. I think it's interesting that Trump and RFK Jr. are talking about the unity party. And what we have heard from the Democrats is unity, unity, unity. When Democrats talk about unity, well, let's start with what the Trump unity perspective, based off of the landscape. The Trump unity, version of unity, is people who don't always agree, who oftentimes disagree. In fact, Trump noted as he introduced RFK Jr. at that event on Friday that he said a lot of mean things about me I didn't really like, and we don't always agree on stuff. But unifying in the cause of the country, what's good for the country. Sure, we have different ways of approaching it. Part of what makes this country great is the ability to have those disagreements, yet still, when it comes down to it, unifying over the fact that we're all Americans. That's the Trump version in the context of this election and welcoming somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard or obviously RFK Jr. Because those are individuals that, again, don't always agree on policy, but they want what's best for the country. When Democrats talk about unity, it's total and complete compliance. It is complete and total obedience. You listen to what we're saying, you regurgitate what we're saying, and you completely and wholly adhere to what we're saying. There is no room for disagreement. These are two very different forms of unity. One is a unity that you see in North Korea. When you go to North Korea, yeah, they're all really unified there. You get hardly any dissent whatsoever. None publicly. Completely unified. That's a much different unity than I think most of us want, or at least most of you do not like that sort of unity. And the evidence of that is up until RFK Jr., I mean, leading up this past year, when he's been out there running against Trump and Biden, the fact that you had a lot of Republicans that said, well, I kind of like the guy, not his policies, but the fact that he was willing to sit down and talk and have a conversation. That when it came to the recognition and the respect for opposing perspectives and having those conversations, RFK Jr. was one of those individuals willing to do that. He did not default to calling political opposition a racist, didn't call you a homophobe, didn't call you and not that he hasn't perhaps in the past used that sort of rhetoric, but now that he is getting the attention and we're able to observe what he's saying in the context of this presidential election, he has demonstrated his willingness to unify with people that he may not agree with completely for the good of the country. That is not what unity means to the Democrat Party. Their unity is compliance. Right now, unity means you support Kamala Harris and the fact that she does not do interviews, the fact that we don't know where she stands on any of the issues because we said so. And if you don't, we will treat you like we've treated RFK Jr. or anyone else who dares question. Some of the audio, the reaction to exactly how this could impact the election, particularly in swing states coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Do you have an RV? Do you have a doctor for your RV? Oh, when something goes wrong, or just for the routine maintenance, you do with Wilder RV in Clinton, Missouri, just a bit over an hour north of Springfield. Most of you are smart with your money. While it isn't always fun to spend those dollars in order to do upkeep, it saves you in the long run. That's the mindset most of you recognize and understand, and Wilder RV is your go-to place. Now, you can, of course, obviously purchase an RV. Perhaps it's your fifth, sixth, seventh one. Not altogether, but, you upgrade or downgrade to accommodate the size of your family, where it is you're wanting to travel, or maybe you've never done it before and you're interested. What does that look like? They are perfect people for that as well. And their website has great listing of their inventory and very transparent pricing. They don't put one price out there and then that's the baseline. Once you get there, tell you, well, now you got to understand we got a prep fee and a delivery fee or a pickup fee. None of that sort of stuff. It's straightforward, transparent. Wilder RV. You can find them at wilderrv.com, also at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Some audio reaction to the announcement by RFK Jr. that he was throwing his support behind Donald Trump. This is CNN's Aaron Burnett.
First time. Today, RFK Jr. had suspended his campaign endorsing Trump. Kennedy telling reporters that Trump had asked him to, quote, enlist him in his administration. Now, the latest swing state polls show Kennedy with 5 or 6% of the vote. And so when you think about it overall, you may say, well, that's not a big deal. Actually, if that is the case in swing states, it is huge. It is everything. It is more than the margin between Harris and Trump in some of those same states.
Also over on, I believe at MSNBC or let's see, was this CNN? It was one of the networks, pollster Frank Luntz on the impact of the election.
Frank Luntz is one of the most highly respected in pollsters on the planet and joins us now. He has been digging into this numbers. Boy, Frank, there's so much to do here. I think we start with what's on the screen right now, which is the RFK endorsement of Donald Trump. At one point, the RFK vote was, 10, 15 points? Now it's down to 4. Is this going to really make a difference?
It will, and it won't. It's probably worth about 1% for Trump. And that 1% could be everything if it's in all the swing states. In the end, the reason why Kennedy was drawing 10, 12, even as high as 14% is because he was taking votes away from Joe Biden. Joe Biden's gone. Kamala Harris has replaced him, and his vote collapsed down to about 4 or 5%. And what's left is a Trump vote. Some of them are simply not going to participate in November. Roughly 2 to 1, the ones who are remaining will vote for Trump over Harris, and that's worth a single percent, and a single percent can make the difference in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
I think there is an unevaluated segment of the voting population that could be impacted by this as well. Not so much the initial announcement, but how it gets played out. And that is the undecided voter. They continue to evaluate, understandably so, the people who have said that they would vote for RFK Jr. But in so many of these pollings, you still see a significant portion of the voting population that says they're undecided. Does this impact them? And I think that some of those people can be swayed by this narrative, if they're successful in creating it, that the left is locked down, top down, picking the candidate, telling the voters, here's who you're going to support, while Donald Trump is a collection of people from diverse backgrounds, politically speaking as well, former political opposition, and that, we all have the same goal. We may not necessarily agree how to get there, but it is to improve the lives of Americans by making America great again. And when we increasingly deal with people who are sick and tired of, the bickering and the fighting, and they just want people to get along, some of those undecided voters could find that to be a very appealing message. That Donald Trump, someone that has long been a turnoff to them because they felt that he couldn't get along with others, all of a sudden is out there campaigning with people of diverse backgrounds, politically speaking. Now, I think that what has to occur here, and it looks as if this is the plan, it can't simply be, here's my friend RFK Jr. If there's too much focus on RFK Jr., then it's not about Trump anymore. And so there has to be a balance here. RFK Jr. has indicated that there are some other Democrats that are not only going to be supportive of Trump, that they're going to be announcing some of these individuals as time goes on, but they may actually go out and be campaigning for them. And there is an interview, let's see here, Dr. Phil has announced an interview with Trump and JFK Jr., or RFK Jr., JFK Jr., RFK Jr. Dr. Phil set to air interviews with Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump and his former independent opponent, RFK Jr. He will air the interviews next week on his television network and streaming service, Merit Street. Dr. Phil says, RFK Jr. has offered his support to you in your campaign. How do you feel about that? I'm very honored. He's a smart guy, and so forth, so forth. And so if they are able to really, in a meaningful way, with more than just RFK Jr., but get these interviews with people that aren't political, like the Dr. Phils or the Theo Vaughns, the comedian, and where it gets this narrative that it isn't even so much about politics. It's just about getting what's right done. Coming together with people of opposing points of views. If they're able to do this, and that resonates with some of those voters who are still undecided, that could be the thing that pulls some of them over. So I think it is a mistake and potentially underestimating the impact that RFK Jr.'s endorsement can make by simply looking at where his voters are going to go and ignoring the undecided voters. And it may not move them at all. But I think there should be some recognition here that it could have an impact on them also. Springfield's Talk 1041, more coming up. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 94. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 95. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 94.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, highly likely to recommend. We've known Emily all her life, so we were confident she was the right realtor for us. She worked quickly to get our listing posted in a timely manner since we were already under contract to buy another property. Emily was always available to show the property, meet contractors, stage an open house, and answer all the questions we had. Our house went under contract quickly thanks to her expertise. Selling real estate is not just a job, but also her passion. And some people, I think, can view this backwards. They've known her whole life. Of course they're going to go with her. Now, I'm the type that I tend to, that works against somebody if I've known them or if I'm personally friends with them when it comes to getting involved in a business capacity, because sometimes that can go wrong. People oftentimes say don't do business with friends and family because so much can go wrong, even if they're perfectly wonderful individuals, and you're a perfectly wonderful individual. So the fact that even though there's that personal relationship, they knew that they did not have to worry about that sort of conflict speaks volumes about Emily Johnson for all of your home buying needs, home selling needs. House Theory Realty. You can find her at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Much like Trump voters in 2016 were hesitant to tell pollers that they were voting for Trump, RFK Jr. voters may be hesitant to tell pollers or friends that they're voting for Trump. That could be that could very well be. Talking about the impact, and you've got evaluation. We played Frank Luntz in the last segment, saying that, it looks like he might deliver 1% of his voters to Trump, but in the swing states, that could definitely make a difference. And I think that there is potentially also a gain in the still undecided voters. You know, one of the things that Trump has, I want to read to you a quote, and I think this is part of his interview he did with Dr. Phil, which is supposed to air. I guess it'll be this week or next week. And Trump said, all who supported Bobby's campaign, I very simply ask you to join us in building this coalition. It's a beautiful coalition in defense of liberty and safety, prosperity and peace. It's going to be an incredible coalition, and the relationship has been so good for so long. I have no doubt it's going to work and work well, but we have to win. We have to take our country away from these people that are going to destroy our country. I think that really crafting this as above politics would be such a smart move. To present this as this is an opportunity for us to get away from the partisan bitterness that we have become so accustomed to and has caused so many different divisions. I mean, I would just lean into that so heavy that it's almost disgusting. Talk about that, make it appear, market it as this is something different. When Obama came along, they marketed him as being an outsider, that he was going to bring something fresh to Americans because he wasn't part of the Washington elite. Now, of course, he was part of Chicago elite, so it arguably was even a downgrade from Washington elite. But it was successful, along with the historic nature of the first black president and so forth. But that was appealing to a lot of people, that this is above politics. And crafting a coalition of other individuals that are Democrats, that are left-wingers, that whatever their political positions are, not based off of compromising principles or coming together on their issues and our issues in which we're vastly opposed to one another, but coming together as a coalition for the purpose of making this country great again and protecting it from the nastiness and the totalitarianism of a political party that tries to kick every political position or opposition off the ballot and or put them in prison. Chris Cuomo's show. Discussion there as well with talking heads about the impact of RFK Jr. endorsing Donald Trump.
Well, I think there's a tremendous upside. I think it's tangible and substantial. Tony Fabrizio, who is a pollster that I've known and worked with for a long time, is the lead pollster for the internal Trump polls, released a memo today going through the 7 battleground states that a lot of people have focused on, talking about North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. And in every single one of those 7 battleground states, all of these RFK Jr. voters break towards Trump. Some of them, Trump is getting 2/3 of the RFK voters, and he's getting about 4%, 3% in these states. And in a state like Pennsylvania, where it could well come down to, tens of thousands of votes, a half a point or 3/4 of a point, that may well make the difference in who the next president is. A lot of people have said that Pennsylvania is going to be the key for Kamala Harris. Democrats cannot win the presidency without Pennsylvania. That is the conventional wisdom. If RFK Jr. makes the difference in other states and Pennsylvania, it really could spell the difference in this campaign. This should be taken seriously. This is a big day in the campaign. And let me tell you, Kamala Harris did not want this to happen on the first day after her convention. She wanted to come out of there riding high. This has completely and totally changed the subject, and now we're back playing on Trump's turf again.
At the same time, there was some welcome news and unwelcome news for RFK Jr. The Biden administration announced that they are yanking his Secret Service protection away from him. Now, if this is discussed, it will be presented as, well, he's not a candidate any longer. And that's what the Secret Service does. They protect the president and a candidate for president. The Secret Service is assigned to protect whomever Homeland Security in the Biden administration tells them to. This is why sometimes family members of presidents or past presidents get protection. This is why the wives, the children, the grandchildren, not all, but some do, How do they determine which ones get the service versus those that don't, given that it's not a complete black and white checkoff list? It is based off of the evaluation of Homeland Security, which is Mayorkas under the Biden administration, whether they are in need of it because of potential danger to their lives. The idea that all of a sudden RFK Jr. doesn't have to worry about an attempt on his life, now that he is endorsing the guy who did have an attempt on his life, defies all logic. Even non-Americans are at times afforded Secret Service protection. Zelensky, his wife, other dignitaries from other countries. So this isn't as black and white as they would like you to believe, and that is, well, he's not a candidate anymore, so he doesn't get it. That's not how it works. Now, some could argue that him dropping out diminishes the likelihood that he could see an assassination attempt. Others are going to argue that he's going to anger some potential assassin out there even more by coming out and trying to help Trump be elected president. But the idea that somehow, all of the sudden, whatever potential danger was there on RFK Jr.'s life has just gone away is absurd. They know exactly what they're doing. This is punishment. A positive bit of news for RFK Jr., a judge has ruled that he can sue the Biden administration over censorship of a charity that questions vaccine. A federal judge ruling that RFK Jr. can sue the Biden administration over alleged social media censorship of his children's health defense charity, which questions the safety of vaccines. Quote, the court finds that Kennedy is likely to succeed on his claim that suppression of content posted was caused by actions of government defendants, and there is a substantial risk that he will suffer similar injury in near future, U.S. District Judge Terry Doherty in Louisiana said on the ruling. The lawsuit alleges the government had pressured social media giants like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to censor content it considered misinformation. The Children's Health Defense, which was founded by Kennedy, says its mission is ending childhood health epidemics by eliminating toxic exposure, while critics of the charity call it anti-vaccine. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have said that vaccines, including COVID-19 vaccine, are safe and effective, though increasingly we find out that they have withheld or covered up evidence, oftentimes to the contrary. Speaking of, where is this? This is a good time to bring up this story. Did you see Fauci was hospitalized with West Nile virus?
I did.
For a guy, listen, I know anyone can, for the most part, catch any of this stuff possible. But for a guy that is used as a spokesperson and the official authority on how not to get sick by these diseases, he gets hit by more of these than it seems like anybody else out there. What, he had COVID 3 times, was that right?
Something like that.
Now, West Nile virus he's got, is he going to get Mpox? Is he going to start going to these raves and pick up monkeypox next? For a guy that we're supposed to listen to as the foremost expert on how to protect ourselves and others from getting these diseases, boy, he sure gets a lot of them. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk at text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Seems like every news headline about Kamala's running mate waltz is another news headline about something else that he's lied about. His entire resume apparently is just one lie after another. Now, the two most recent has to do with, one, a claim that he went and he loves China, communism. He, according to former students of his, taught that communism was a good thing, made sure that all of us were taken care of. Then he'd go over to China, where they have concentration camps and slavery. So clearly he recognizes. And there was that whole Tiananmen Square massacre thing. But he's tried to claim that he was sent there essentially by Harvard. That wasn't true. And then he's been claiming that he was recognized and received this award from the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, which they have come out and said, stop saying this. That is not true. Breitbart reporting that Democrat vice presidential candidate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, was caught inflating his background, a.k.a. lying, and making it seem like Harvard University was behind a teaching program in China in which he participated, according to recent reports. A report from the Washington Free Beacon found that Walz had lied about being named the outstanding young Nebraskan by the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, and seemingly implying that Harvard University was behind the teaching program and had handpicked Walz for an opportunity to teach in China through a university program. Neither of these claims apparently are true. I mean, it's gotten to the point where the chamber has asked him, stop saying this. I always wonder when people like this decide to tell a lie in order to enhance their resume, what they pick. Because there's got to be some standard, I suppose. Is it random? Like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to falsely claim that I was named the outstanding young Nebraskan by the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce. It would be one thing if if you were making a claim that you worked for an organization or you had received some sort of accolades from an organization that no longer existed, right? Because you'd say, well, they can't go check it out. Chamber of Commerce still exists. These claims that he makes, whether it's about how he eats tacos or his military service or how it was his child was conceived or why it was he was teaching in China or that he was recognized by the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, all of these things are so easily determined to be true or not true. What appears to happen oftentimes, and I believe this is what turned Biden into someone who will tell these absurd lies over and over and over again, is they are popular in their own state, and they are able to tell lies without it being fact-checked. And frankly, because when you're a governor, people don't care about that stuff so much unless somebody's running against you. I mean, think of all the things that Parson has claimed about his resume. Oh, you can't think of any? That's because people don't usually pay attention to that stuff. So while Tim Walz is running around lying about his military record, lying about how his child was conceived, lying about, all of these other things, it was done in a manner that wasn't getting any sort of national or even statewide attention. It popped up in a local newspaper here. It popped up at some speech he gave to a Kiwanis club over there. But it isn't the sort of thing in which even people who knew it wasn't true, they're like, they just, he's a politician. Sometimes they inflate things. Once you get on a national stage, however, and you are in the context of a political election, people start looking at some of these claims. And I think it catches them off guard because they've been able to tell lies for their entire career and not really been scrutinized over it. And even if they are scrutinized by it, people ignore it. Again, most people don't really follow this sort of stuff, even with their own governors. And so you end up oftentimes with someone, be it a Biden or a Walz, that become very accustomed to lying constantly about who they are. And then they get on the national stage, and it's like, my gosh, you start to realize everything about this person is a lie. And that's what we're learning about Tim Walz. Because at this stage, every story, virtually, every story past the media lionizing the guy and trying to convince us that he was this folksy Midwesterner, once that was done with, every news story that pops up is about some lie that he's told. That is the only news that he's getting. I also think that it's somewhat interesting that despite what they say, genuinely, there's much more excitement about Donald Trump simply getting the endorsement of RFK Jr. than Kamala Harris regarding her vice presidential pick. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Evangelicals for Harris courting, quote, politically homeless Christians to back the Democrat in November. An evangelical Christian group hoping to shake up the race by persuading voters of faith to see Vice President Harris as the candidate who will better uphold your values if you are an evangelical Christian. Well, of course. Reverend Lee Scott of Evangelicals for Harris told Fox News Digital, "We all want people to think more deeply about their civic participation and their faith and how their faith engages with politics. Frankly, I believe President Trump has used Christian voters to further his own ends at the expense of the faithful witness of those same voters. Behavior that would be unacceptable in toddlers is promoted and strengthened leadership, or as strengthened leadership, and that's got to change." Now, listen, to me, Christian faith is a personal relationship. I'm always very uneasy about describing somebody as a good Christian, a bad Christian. They're not a Christian, they are a Christian. So I can't characterize Trump as a, quote, good or bad Christian or using Christians. But we can identify the behavior of Kamala Harris and the Democrats. These are people that have used the FBI to infiltrate churches, who label Christians as oppressors, who show up behind the pulpit in church come election time when it comes time to needing votes, but then once the votes are done and counted, they go back to referring to them as danger potential domestic terrorists, as Christian nationals. So if we're really wanting to identify the two political candidates and which one, quote, uses Christians, seems pretty clear. You got a car care need? You got A1 Custom Car Care. Financing is available, pre-purchase inspection, one of the most valuable services that they offer. My recommendation to you is that if you are purchasing a pre-owned vehicle off a legitimate lot, I think a lot of times people think, oh, I'm buying it from some guy off Marketplace. And so, I really got to worry, get that pre-approval inspection done. Now, this is a pre-purchase inspection done, rather. This isn't your government-mandated inspection, and this is beyond what Carfax can tell you. This is really getting in there, elbows deep, taking things apart so that you know what it is that you're purchasing. And listen, even used vehicles on car lots. Just because it's a used vehicle on a car lot does not mean that that car is ready to have another 100,000 miles put on it, or that it isn't getting ready to have some sort of catastrophic issue. The last vehicle I purchased, which was off a reputable lot, I still took and had that pre-purchase inspection. And there were a few things that were, normal wear and tear. Hey, you probably want to have this changed and this flushed out and so forth. And then I knew what I was dealing with, and it was worth it to me, and it was a wise decision because it's been a fantastic vehicle for me. But that pre-purchase inspection, don't think it's only if you're buying from somebody shady. You should always have that done. Even if it's someone you trust or a reputable car lot, A1 Custom Car Care can provide that pre-purchase inspection for you. You can find them at KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. The pro-Palestinian group Abandon Biden revealed on Friday that it has embarked on its Abandon Harris campaign. The campaign devoted to ensuring that Vice President Kamala Harris loses the presidential election. Announced in their release, the group, which remains registered under Abandon Biden, said mission is now laser-focused on exposing and opposing Kamala Harris and her complicity in genocide. The group, which asserts that appealing to the conscience of the Democratic Party is a waste of time, wrote that the party has shown it has no interest in ending what it calls a genocide in Gaza. They are not mere bystanders. They are active participants in this brutal, unforgivable violence. They have no moral compass, the movement wrote about Democrats. There is only one path forward: abandon the party of genocide and ethnic cleansing, stand up for dignity, integrity, and humanity, because they won't. The group is, quote, committed to ensuring Harris loses the 2024 election and to make it clear that anyone who runs on a platform of genocide will be condemned to fail. They call on others to help hold the Democratic Party accountable for the bloodshed in Gaza as a result of the Israel-Hamas war. Out of the gate, this is, again, why you don't negotiate with terrorists or people who are supporters of terrorists. Because unless you strap a bomb on yourself and walk into a crowded marketplace in which you are going to kill off untold number of innocent people, you never, ever do enough for these organizations. It does not matter. They have one goal in mind, and that is the elimination of the Jews. And if you're not fully on board with that 100%, then it doesn't matter. You can go 99% of their way, and they will still not only reject you, but demand that you be taken down. This is, incidentally, the same approach that they take with Israel. This is why a two-state solution is a ludicrous idea. The most vocal opponents of a two-state solution are the supporters of Hamas and, of course, Hamas itself, of which 80+% of people in Gaza say that they support Hamas. They support their efforts. The idea that they could live side by side is the most backwards and lazy thinking that is presented by individuals that don't really have the stomach to do what is necessary for meaningful peace in the Middle East, like the Trump administration did with the Abraham Accords, but instead want to virtue signal. And they will virtue signal the Jewish people all the way to the sea. You just cannot win with these individuals. Incidentally, for all of their talk about demanding a ceasefire, the Israelis have agreed to numerous ceasefires. It is Hamas that always says no. When they are protesting for a ceasefire, they're protesting at the wrong people. Even protesting at this administration. They ought to be protesting against Hamas. Because Hamas is the one grouping of individuals, the one entity that has at every turn, when there was a peace deal, a ceasefire peace deal on the table, Hamas is the one that said no. Over, and I'm not just talking about past conflicts, every single instance, there's been over half a dozen, maybe more, since October 7th of last year. And this idea that Israel is the problem here, that the Jewish people are the problem here. Why is it that Arabs who live in Israel outside of Gaza have a perfectly wonderful quality of life? Should that not be the most dangerous place for them to exist if Israel really is the problem? There are thousands and thousands of Arabs who live in Gaza that are granted because they request them work permits to work in Israel. But what you don't see are thousands of people from Israel wanting work permits to work in Gaza. Why do you think that is? Not to mention the LGBT community. They have to flee Gaza and live in Israel in order to not fear being thrown off a roof to send a message that the LGBT community is not welcome there. There is one problem in Gaza. It is Hamas. And in all reality, the best thing that could ever happen to the citizens in that region of the world is if the Palestinian Authority was gone, if Hamas was gone, and Israel had total control of it, just like they do Israel itself, because then the people who live there, Arabs specifically, could have the same quality of life as Arabs in Israel, which is just the same as everyone else there. I want to play some audio coming up. It was a fantastic week for the Republicans in terms of getting the message out. We've got some J.D. Vance, Tom Cotton as well, all of that coming up. Look at the weather. It's going to be a really, really hot week. First, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 94. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 95. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 94.
This is just a remarkable thing that is occurring as we speak. Donald Trump is in the process of laying the wreath at the Arlington National Cemetery. Now, it's been 3 years. Was it 3 years that
I believe so.
Afghanistan. Specifically, yeah, I think it was specifically the attack that killed some of our own. I believe this is there's a number, there's like a period of 2-3 weeks there in which a number of horrific things happened.
Yeah.
And you hate to use the term anniversary, but more of a remembrance. And so in that context here, you have Biden is nowhere to be seen because we seemingly are operating without an actual president of the United States. And you have Donald Trump is the one that is laying that wreath instead of the current president of the United States. And I don't think this is a willful decision. I don't characterize this as Biden once again essentially looking at his watch in the context of dead Americans who lost their lives serving the country unnecessarily in that particular case. I think that we are just operating without a president of the United States right now, that this guy is so incapable of even showing up in public for the most part at this point. Will he make an appearance here or there? Lord only knows. But it's just such a surreal real thing. When you're watching it, you'd think right now Donald Trump is president of the United States of America. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm wondering if Kamala is going to do a laying of the wreath. Because this isn't something that necessarily only happens once. There are oftentimes a laying of the wreath that takes place, and so it could very well have Kamala, but I don't know that she will.
I don't think she will.
My instinct tells me that she won't bother, that she probably doesn't see it as something that is worth her while, and she may fear that it will somehow tick off her anti-Semitic wing of her party by honoring the military that has a hand in infiltrating the Middle East and the general rhetoric of these terrorist organizations. She may be too concerned about how it will come off to them if she did participate in a laying of the wreath at Arlington Cemetery. But what a surreal thing to see it. Here you've got seemingly a country with no actual president, and then the former president, Donald Trump, standing in essentially in that presidential sort of performance atmosphere, if you will. And it's just a surreal thing to watch play out. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. I wanted to read a review for my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. John wrote, I had hail damage in my area on May 24th. Josh was the only roofer out of 4 to give me a detailed quote. His quote came in just under what the insurance company estimated, and this was before he was provided with the insurance figures. Josh also worked with the insurance company to make sure items missed on the initial insurance estimates were covered. 2 separate crews came out to work on the main house. I have a shingled roof, and then also 2 separate structures that are metal roofs. As a pet owner, I have an older dog with anxiety issues with loud noises. Josh worked it out so I could schedule to have my dog out of the house when it was being worked on. Small details like that are huge to me. Josh cares that all aspects of the job are covered and are as stress-free as possible. So there you have it. If it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out at your home, whether you need a roof repair or a whole new roof or maybe that free roof inspection, go ahead and give Josh and his team a call today. Now you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
It looks like is this a replay, or are they laying a number of different? No, because this is I wonder if this is a family member of one of the soldiers killed.
Each fallen family
okay,
member.
So right now, Donald Trump is laying wreaths at Arlington National Cemetery for those Americans that were unnecessarily killed in the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan. And it does appear as if, it looks like that.
And I think you're right. I think that those are family members of the fallen soldiers.
So there are multiple wreaths right now, and they're going through the ceremony and with different people. So I think it's fair to say these are family members of those. It's just, where's Biden? Where's Harris? Why is it that Donald Trump is the one doing what it is the president should be doing what it is that if the president is incapable of doing, that the vice president is doing? And I think it speaks volumes. J.D. Vance was on NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday with Kristen Welker. And one of the issues that was discussed is tariffs. And this is where the media is desperate to paint Trump as wanting to raise taxes on Americans. When you hear the Democrats falsely claim that Trump is going to raise taxes on the middle class, what they're talking about are tariffs. Now, they don't mention that there are tariffs in place right now by the Biden administration. No, they don't mention that. They act as if tariffs, for the very first time ever, were something that were invented by Donald Trump, then went away under Joe Biden, and they will come back under Donald Trump. We have had tariffs in place on a number of different products as long as, or even longer than many of us have even been alive. So this isn't anything new. Does it impact the marketplace? Of course it does. That's the whole point. Now, the issue of tariffs themselves is one in which, depending on your perspective, are either going to be good or they're going to be bad. The steel industry has been impacted tremendously when it comes to the issue of tariffs. That is an industry that even locally there was a facility, somewhat locally, I remember it being in the news, that they eventually had to shut down because some of the tariffs Trump had put into place were lifted by Biden. And this is because there are certain industries here in the United States that cannot compete against countries like China. China uses slaves. They have concentration camps. They use that free labor in order to produce products that they can then sell cheaper because they're using slaves to make their products. So the idea is you put a tariff on it so that you eliminate their ability to sell the products. You offset it so that the products being sold here would cost the same amount as if they would if they weren't using slaves, or if it was produced here in the United States. And it may not always be a direct to the consumer sort of scenario. You may have an industry that relies on a certain element, for example, or a certain product, a component of whatever their product is, and they can get it a lot cheaper from China because China uses slaves, where here in the United States they don't. And so you've got this competition going on in which U.S.-based companies cannot compete. And so the tariffs are meant to make things more equal. Now, I happen to believe it's a mixed bag of results. I understand people who are against tariffs altogether, and they say, hey, listen, the upside of companies, yeah, okay, so they can buy cheaper components from China because they use slaves, and maybe that puts some industries out of business here, but because of the money that is saved by the companies who purchase the cheaper products from China, then they are able to expand their worker base. They are able to build new factories. And so it's just a matter of shifting the benefit. Trump's overall position when it came to tariffs was coming from a number of fronts. One, the fact that China steals our intellectual property all the time. They have no dignity when it comes to thievery. The communist Chinese, the intellectual sabotage is something that they have done for a very long time. After COVID, I think that pro-tariff individuals have an argument to make that if tariffs, even if it makes some products a little more expensive because we are becoming more reliant on American companies to produce them, the upside is we're not reliant on China to produce those products any longer. So if we have some sort of supply chain issue, we're less impacted by it. Remember the prescription drugs. There were a number of different products that people rely on that were becoming scarce because we relied on China for those products. And I think that there's an argument to be made that, okay, economically, some products might cost a little bit more, but at least we're producing it, so we're not reliant on China. So China, in case of some sort of conflict or international situation, we are not in dire straits because we relied on China. So I believe there's arguments on both sides that can legitimately be made to argue on behalf of their personal perspective. What is unacceptable in the context of honesty, though, is this presentation that Donald Trump is the only one that has ever supported tariffs, and the inconsistency of a media that on one hand loves to point out the increased cost to the consumer when it comes to tariffs, but they do not do the same whenever they are talking about Kamala Harris wanting to jack up the corporate income tax rate. The corporate tax rate, because it's the same principle. The reason that tariffs trickle down to the consumer, by the way, this is trickle-down economics, which Democrats love to pretend is some theory that doesn't actually have any basis in reality. But the tariffs, they trickle down to the consumer because it is an additional cost of doing business. Corporate taxes are the exact same thing. It's an additional cost. That also trickles down to the consumer. So the inconsistency of the media when it comes to highlighting this reality is once again the media campaigning for Kamala Harris. We're going to take a break, and J.D. Vance, he addresses this fantastically with Kristen Welker, then also play some audio from Tom Cotton, who he confronts a Jonathan Karl on ABC, who falsely is trying to campaign on behalf of Kamala Harris, making false claims about things that Kamala Harris has and hasn't said, and Tom Cotton stands his ground. All that ahead. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. We do have traffic coming up, standing by, but I want to remind you about all of those home loan needs you may have and interest rates up, down, all around. And when we talked with Anthony Carricker, once again stressing that, even if you are at your bank or wherever it is that you maybe have all your other loans, vehicle loans, whatever loans they may be, check out iwantagreathomeloan.com, and they're going to do what they can in order to accommodate, maybe even get you a better deal. And so there's no harm in finding out. It doesn't cost you anything to find out. And they're just fantastic. They're very good at what they do. This is what they do. It's not a rotating job. In other words, one day we're working on this, one day we're working on that. And oftentimes if you go to a big bank, that's what you're dealing with. You get handed off. That's department over there. No, that the home loan department is the department, 100%, and that's why you get such a focused, laser approach with the Carrickers and their team at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today it's going to be sunny and hot with a high near 94. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 95. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 94.
Right, J.D. Vance this was a great weekend. This actually was a very good week for the Trump campaign. You had the betting market, and I don't know where the betting markets are today, but Kamala Harris up going into the Democratic National Convention, and by the end of it, the betting markets were down for her. This was somewhat historic. Instead of the traditional bump that a candidate gets with their convention, she actually saw a decline, at least with the betting markets. They had to make up a story about Beyonce having a performance there in order to get people to pack the room. And then the next day, RFK Jr. making the announcement that he is endorsing and going to work with Donald Trump, along with the announcement that there are other big Democrat names that are going to be dropping. And we'll see how big those names are. Now, this is much different than when, the Harris campaign, we got Republicans supporting us, and they're no-name individuals, or there has been wash-ups, Republicans that haven't had any sort of meaningful impact for 20 or 30 years. It's a much different situation. And then over the weekend, a couple of different interviews. Bernie Sanders not serving the Harris campaign very well. We'll get to that audio coming up. Also, Tom Cotton doing a great job against Jonathan Karl. And this, when it comes to the issue of tariffs, was J.D. Vance.
Now, the estimates vary.
But Kristen, there's this whole thing that Kamala Harris did at the convention where she made a bunch of claims about what would happen and not enough actually reflection on what already happened, right? Because Donald Trump was already president. He used tariffs to bring manufacturing jobs back to our country, and I think he'll do it again. And he did it while keeping prices extremely low. Because if you go back to the Trump presidency, we had 12,000 factories that were built during Donald Trump's presidency. Inflation never really ticked above 2% his entire administration. In fact, was sort of, around 1.5% most of the time that he was president. So when Kamala Harris says, if we do the thing that Trump already did, it's going to be way worse than it was last time, I just don't think that makes a lot of sense.
There's two approaches here, and he took both of them. One is the more nuanced details about the tariff issue itself. But what is more digestible to the general public at large, and that is people that don't necessarily know the intricacies of tariffs and exactly how they work, and tariffs under Trump versus under Biden and so forth, is to just simply say, we're Americans. All of the talk about the tariffs, the Trump tariffs. Trump had tariffs in place when he was president the first time around. Was the economy better for the average American then, or is it now? And he essentially said that by noting that, hey, they keep talking about what if, but it's already been. Trump was president. Trump did have tariffs, and inflation didn't hit even 2%. It was under 2%. So we keep talking about this theoretical claim by the Democrats that there's going to be a massive spike in inflation due to tariffs, but we've had the Trump tariffs in place, and we didn't see that. So that's reality. Over on ABC, Tom Cotton with Jonathan Karl, and Cotton starts listing off a number of contrasts between the Harris campaign and the Trump campaign, and immediately Jonathan Karl steps in to try to campaign on behalf of Kamala Harris, and Cotton shuts him down.
Now, the estimates vary.
Wrong audio. Here we go.
And President Trump is going to draw a sharp contrast with Kamala Harris, who has supported things like decriminalizing illegal immigration or giving taxpayer-funded health insurance to illegal aliens or taking away health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, banning gas cars, confiscating firearms.
What do you mean taking away health insurance? What are you talking about?
She said when she ran for president that she wants to eliminate private health insurance on the job for 170 million Americans, John.
Yeah, I mean that is not her position now.
How do you know that's not her position? How do you know that's not her position?
I mean, she says she no longer supports Medicare for all.
She has not said that. Okay. Maybe anonymous aides on a Friday night have said that, but the last thing that she said.
But this was not a radical.
Let's pause here for a moment. Isn't it amazing how the roles are reversed? Tom Cotton is doing what Jonathan Karl should be doing, and Jonathan Karl is doing what it is that somebody from the Kamala campaign should be doing. Here you have Jonathan Karl campaigning for Kamala Harris, telling straight-up lies. Well, Kamala has said that that's not what she... And Tom Cotton is doing what the journalist should be doing and saying that's not true. She did not say that. When did she say that? She has not said that. See, this is the way that they're operating. And this is where the media, I believe, is going to begin to get frustrated because they're trying to defend her. Yet anytime their defense is, well, Kamala says, then the response, accurately so, is she has never said that because Kamala Harris is not saying anything about her positions. And that's the whole point. Instead, as Tom Cotton noted here, that she's never said that she's now opposed to eliminating private insurance. But you'll get a news story from some anonymous source who says, well, that's what, she isn't any longer. That's not valid. But what does it do? It allows people like Jonathan Karl to say, well, she's against that now. Now, fortunately, Tom Cotton is able to do, again, what the journalist should be doing and saying, that's inaccurate. That is not true. It is a humiliating display of what has become in the media, and then the uncomfortable pause in which Jonathan Karl is backed into a corner because he knows that Tom Cotton is on the side of the truth here, and that Kamala has never come out and said, well, now she's opposed to eliminating private health insurance. He goes on, Jonathan Karl, on behalf of the Harris campaign, and tries to shift to the Democratic National Convention and claim, this is such transparent marketing and propaganda, that Kamala Harris she's actually a moderate.
Convention. I mean, she, as you heard me go through with Bernie Sanders, she is not taking the positions of the far left of her party. She's clearly making an effort to move to the middle.
I did hear what you said to Senator Sanders, and I thought it was clear that he's very disappointed that she's taking these efforts not to change her positions, but to hide her positions, John. The American people are totally justified to conclude that Kamala Harris is a dangerous San Francisco liberal based on what she campaigned on the last time she ran for president and what this administration has done for the last 4 years. Again, you would have thought watching the Democratic convention last week that the Democrats are not in office, that they're not in power, that they're campaigning against an incumbent Republican, when in reality, she's been part of the failures of the Biden-Harris administration for 4 years. And when she campaigned for president in her own right, she did in fact promise things like decriminalizing illegal immigration and taking away health insurance.
But that's his position she's clearly changed on, and she has said she has changed. Yes, she has.
No, she has not. John, she has not said that.
If ABC News had any dignity or ethics, they would be humiliated. Not only because the person who is supposed to be the objective face of their network, their news network, is so transparently acting as a campaign surrogate for Kamala Harris, but that he's doing it so poorly. After a quick break here, media is going apoplectic over claims that Trump may be dropping out of one of the debates. We'll read to you what it was that he posted regarding the ABC debate that is scheduled for the 10th or 11th, somewhere around there. There are two debates. Kamala refuses to do any debate unless it's a network that is promoting her. This is why she won't do a Fox News debate. But that's perfectly fine. That's okay and that's reasonable. But Trump just alludes to rhetorically saying, I don't even know if I should debate on this network. That all of a sudden is a sign that Donald Trump is running scared. There are a number of stories that Donald Trump may be dropping out of one of the debates because clearly he's very scared of Kamala Harris, who's proven to be one of the greatest wordsmiths ever. And read, Sarah, what it was that he posted that has led to this conversation.
So he posted this on Truth Social. I watched ABC Fake News this morning. Both lightweight reporter Jonathan Karl, ridiculous and biased interview of Tom Cotton, who was fantastic, by the way, and their so-called panel of Trump haters. And I ask, why would I do the debate against Kamala Harris on that network? Will panelist Donna Brazile give the questions to the Marxist candidate like she did for crooked Hillary Clinton? Will Kamala's best friend, who heads up ABC, do likewise? Where is little George Slopadopoulos hanging out now? Will he be involved? They've got a lot of questions to answer. Why did Harris turn down Fox, NBC, CBS, and even CNN? Stay tuned.
So I don't think this is so much about Trump preparing to not have that. Where's the other debate then that they're going to have? The one that, because there were two, whatever the network is. I think this is more about just getting this in the news. If Trump simply gets on there and notes the reality of a news network that is promoting a campaign, it'll get ignored. But if he does it in the context of maybe I shouldn't do the debate, it starts to get headlines. And so people, it's a sort of a Trojan horse way of getting his message in there. And they may genuinely be thinking strategically, perhaps only doing one debate is better for us. I don't know. I would go ahead and do both debates. It kills me, though, that how on earth can you be a Kamala Harris supporter when she will not do a debate on one of the networks, but then get upset if she handpicked two of her networks? We'll call them her and Fox News is not a Trump network. Fox News's board of directors are anti-Trump people. Paul Ryan is one of them. I mean, he refused to go to the Republican National Convention because he hates Trump so much. Fox News is not a pro-Trump network. It's much more down the middle than these other networks are. But Kamala Harris and Tim Walz is the same way. They will not do any debates on networks that aren't promoting their campaigns. And if ever there was an argument for any candidate to say, I'm not going to debate with that network, it would be Trump with ABC News. Because currently there's a lawsuit based off the fact that George Stephanopoulos lied on air, falsely claiming Trump was convicted of rape.
I think that was the only debate that was scheduled.
Oh, I thought there were three, and then he said I would do three.
Yeah,
he's going to debate, or he'll debate.
Yeah, he will. He tried to schedule one for Fox News on September 4th and then on NBC on September 25th. She said she definitely wasn't going to do Fox News, but it was kind of up in the air about the NBC. Now, there is one scheduled in October 1st, and that is Vance and Walz.
For the longest time, they were talking about three, or Trump said that he and three different networks had agreed to three different debates, and then I guess Harris said maybe she only agreed to one. So,
and I think it was that ABC
one. I can't imagine him not debating her. I definitely think, because that will be what is it she's doing everything she can avoid? Talking about where she stands on issues. If she is on a stage for 90 minutes trying to not take a stance on an issue, that is not going to come off very good. How is she going to explain why it was that she was for banning fracking, and now is she actually against banning fracking? Because this is, again, she hasn't taken a stance on any of these issues. This was the point of contention between Tom Cotton and Jonathan Karl. Jonathan Karl claiming that, well, Kamala now says that she's against banning private insurance. And Cotton's like, she has not said that. And she hasn't said it. All of these issues in which we're hearing she has a different position on, we have not heard that from her. That is something that she is going to have to try to rationalize and justify during a debate. And so that's why I think that a debate could be very, very, very damaging for her. Now, that being said, understand that whenever the media evaluates the debate, unless it is just such an utter embarrassing train wreck for her, they are not going to be comparing Kamala's performance to Trump's performance. They will compare it to Biden's performance. Because you cannot do more poorly than Biden did. Odds are she would not. If so, God help her. But that way they can position it as a victory, as, see, it's better that she's running against Trump than Biden. So that's where the comparisons will be. I do want to play some Bernie Sanders audio coming up here with Jonathan Karl, not a great surrogate on Sunday for Kamala Harris. I mentioned earlier this morning, I want to mention again, keep your eyes open. You may see whether it's billboards or in some stores. Kansas Territory Brewing Company, they focus more on quality instead of quantity. If you like your just standard, non-fancy types of beers, the Bradford Light, they do have a Pineapple Life Coach. It's not overly sweet. I don't like the overly sweet. Currently, you can, and some of you probably have had their offerings at Hammond's Field. But they are going to be, I believe, running some billboards as they make their way into the market, and you may see them on store shelves. So something to keep your eye out for. Kansas Territory Brewing. You can visit their site. In fact, they're out of Washington, Kansas, KansasTerritoryBrewingCo.com. Jonathan Karl playing a Kamala Harris tough on the border campaign ad for Bernie Sanders. And the ad shows in 3 different places a wall. This is the wall that Trump built in a Kamala campaign.
What do you make of her transformation on this issue?
Well, I don't think it's a question of transformation. We have a crisis at the border, and we've got to make sure that fentanyl does not get into this country. We have to crack down on illegal immigration. But what we need is comprehensive immigration reform. I mean, you got God knows how many young people in this country as a result of DACA who deserve to gain citizenship. We need skilled workers, and we need workers in this country. A lot of labor shortages all over America where immigrants can play an important role. So keeping people from illegally entering the country obviously is the right thing to do. But we need comprehensive immigration reform, and I suspect that is what the vice president supports.
But if you take a look at that ad, and one thing that I found striking is if you look, and I think we have the images here, there are at least 3 points in that ad that show the border wall, Donald Trump's border wall. Is it now the position of the Democrats that they favored the border wall?
Well, you can ask the Harris campaign about that ad. That's the first that I've seen it.
I don't know anything about it. I have no idea whatsoever. Oh, and isn't that a great default? You'll have to ask their campaign. The campaign that will not do any interviews. Will not do any interviews. Now, think about all of the positioning. This is so perfect when it comes to the border wall. Visually and symbolically, what was the biggest hit out against Trump when it came to the wall? When it came to the border, I should say. Kids in cages, right? Remember those photos that were popping up, kids behind those fences? And then it turned out that those were pictures taken during the Obama administration. So they used photos of Biden-era policy in order to trash Trump when it came to border policies. Now they're using photos from the Trump administration in order to bolster Kamala Harris's credibility when it comes to border security. They lie coming and going. Also, there are reports from numerous Democrats that they are admitting that Harris's price control plan, they're being told, don't worry, she won't actually do it. So here's another policy of Kamala Harris in which we're told it doesn't really even exist. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.